Hi there. In this screencast, we'll look at purchase invoices. So I'm at the Payables module. I can quickly create a purchase invoice by simply clicking on the icon right here and then choosing my supplier. I'm going to use Alphonse. Or, I'm just going to close this. I can twirl Alphonse. This is useful if you're at your home screen, and create invoice. So two ways to create an invoice. Alphonse gets popped in this situation, and I'm going to add their source document number. This comes from their invoice. It's on March 4th. And we're buying some inventory items. I'm just going to stretch this out a bit so you can see what I'm doing a little better. So I'll get a list of all of my inventory items. When I click on this little white field here, there's a little triangle, a drop down, or a twirl, and I can choose the item I wish to purchase. In this case, we're going to buy some brass instruments under the B115 there, and we're going to buy 5 of those. The price, the average price that we have paid for this invoice to date is what gets popped in that price field. If you'll remember back when we looked at inventory, we were able to add the selling price but no purchase price. So the purchase price in Sage 50 is calculated with an average. And it's only GST, which is G for the tax code. So if it doesn't recognize the code, that window will pop up. Inversely, you can click on your little finder and choose the code there, or you can just simply type in the code for the tax. And we're also paying for freight. That also includes, or GST is added on top of that. And they're going to give us 2% discount if we pay within 10 days, net 30. So if you'll remember when we added shippers, or sorry, suppliers, we added taxes and terms. This supplier did not have those added. That's why we had to populate those fields. Now, we can look at what this looks like behind the scenes if we click on, when I say behind the scenes, I mean under the hood, the actual bookkeeping. I can click on Report, Display Purchases Journal Entry. Let me just make that smaller so you can see it. There you go. And you'll notice it uses a standard bookkeeping entry. Everything as you would expect. Now I'm going to add a shipper to this invoice, and that's the little yellow present flying through the air. So if I just click on that, and we only have the one. In my notes I use DHL, but I only have the one shipper, so I'm just going to use FedEx. 1, 2, 3, and OK. And to save this transaction, we click on Post. If you see a different term here, it may be because you're using non-accounting terms. And OK. Now, we recorded a memo for one of our suppliers that we created in the Daily Business Manager. And you'll see that this invoice we just created also appears in the Daily Business Manager. And the Daily Business Manager is located right here, DBM. We can also find it under Business Assistant. I always just use the DBM. So notice for March 14th, notice it's bold on the calendars. It's because something happened on that day, either a transaction or something was added to a memo. So if you're anywhere past the 14th, notice if I click back on the 11th, we don't see that memo that we added for the 14th. So if you're on the 14th or any day past, you'll see all of the memos for those dates. And we created an invoice with a pay later So if we look at payments due and scroll all the way down here, you'll see that it tells us it's due on March 3rd. That comes from our terms, right? Sorry, April 3rd. We entered March 3rd for the date. So the terms were 30. And it also tells us the discount date and that there's a discount available. We can process the payment for this purchase right from the Daily Business Manager, which we'll see later on. All right, so that's one type of payables transaction. Let's quickly look at non-inventory purchase. There's a second purchase on account. In my notes, you can go ahead and enter that. I'm just going to jump ahead to the non-inventory purchase. So again, I'm going to click on purchase invoice. We have a vendor that doesn't yet exist in our list, so we can add that vendor on the fly. So I'm going to click on purchase invoices, and we've got a new supplier here, Lou Stationery. So we're buying some office supplies from Lou. So when I hit tab, because Lou Stationery doesn't exist in my supplier list, it asks me what I want to do as far as recording this record. So the book has us do a full ad. I'm going to do a full ad, but I'm not going to bother with the contact information. We already saw how to add all of that. I'm just going to quickly jump over to options. And again, this is office supplies that we buy from them. We're the end consumer of office supplies. They don't give us any discounts, and our tax is GST and PST. And we started working with them March 1st on the address tab. The supplier since field is on the address tab. So you can add as much information as you like. I'm just going to add those few bits. So the point there is you can add a supplier on the fly as well as using our add suppliers here like we saw before. Alright, so invoice number is 1583. Again, that's their number. That's why we have to enter it. It's not automatically generated. When we sell items to customers, those are automatically generated, those invoices numbers. So on March 7th, and we're buying envelopes and paper. And the amount for that is $149. Notice the account pops up because we added it to Lou Stationery's record. And we're going to go ahead and post that. And OK. The next purchase invoice we'll look at is a COD purchase. So we're paying for these items as we receive them. It's not going on account. So transactions still an invoice. Notice that we have a few transaction types here. We'll look at all of these later on. And the method this time is check. And we'll be using 1060. Notice no check number pops in automatically. So we want to add a check number to this bank account. Otherwise, the check number won't increment as we write more checks. We'll have to add a check number basically have to look at our check stock and see the number there and then add it here. But we can just do this once and it'll increment automatically from that point. So I'm just going to close my purchase invoice and go to Setup Settings. And then under Company, under Forms, we're going to make a few other changes while we're here. We're going to add, for sales quotes, the next form number is 50. So basically we would have a stack of preprints, and we'd be looking at the next number on our stack of preprints. Purchase orders, 100. These numbers will come up later. That's why we're adding them now. So that's where we add some numbers for some types of forms. Checks are forms as well, but we add their numbers in a slightly different place. So I choose OK. I go to Setup Reports and Forms, and this is where we add the next check numbers. So under Checks, I'm going to go to 1060, and the next check number, I'm going to enter 313 and choose OK. So now, when I go to Purchase Invoices and I choose Check, the 313 pops up. And once I write a check, it'll, of course, increment to 314. All right, so now I'm going to add my vendor. So this vendor, we don't plan on ever seeing again. They're a one-time vendor. Maybe they were rude to us or something like that, so we're not going back. So when I hit Tab to leave this field, again I get this little message. This situation, this is a one-time supplier, and OK. Notice once I choose my supplier here, all of this changes back. So that's a little bit of a strange hiccup there. So I have to go back and change this to Check, and then we're in business. Again, be aware of that. Generally, when I fill out a form, I work from top to bottom, but with these purchase invoices, you have to choose your supplier first and then go up to the line above it. And now I'll add the rest of my information. So it's ADG 1937. This happened on March 10th. And we're buying some corner desk units for our own use. And they're $479 each, $479.99. We pay both GST and PST, so you can just enter the code there, or again you can click on your little finder and pick the code. Notice I enter a price, I get no tax or amount until I enter a quantity. So we saw the amount before, but if you enter a price, you have to enter a quantity. And we added that vendor on the fly, so the account doesn't automatically pop in. It has no way of knowing what account to affect. So we're going to go ahead and pick office furniture, which is an asset. We can write the depreciation off on that. Notice we have a create button here, so you can actually create accounts on the fly as well if you don't have the account that you require in your list already. Now we're paying at the time of purchase, so they're going to give us a $96 discount, which is about 10%. You can enter a percentage or a dollar amount in this field. No freight. And if I look at the journal entry, again it's under Report, Purchase Journal Entry, you'll notice accounts payable is not affected. Well, it is for GST paid on purchases, but there's no subledger for ADG Furniture Emporium accounts payable affected. And I'll go ahead and post. And we'll do one more, a recurring entry. So it's a purchase invoice. We're paying by check. And we're using our landlord. Again, notice when I picked that, this changed back. Again, we pay by check. And notice the check number increments. And this is March 2017. We don't need a source document number for a rent. Unless they give us a receipt, then we could use that number, I guess. We have to pay the rent on the 1st. And say store rent. We pay GST for commercial rent. The amount is $22.50, and our account is rent expense. $5,000 numbers are expenses, and that's rent. Now we pay this every month, so instead of keying this in, we can just store this as a recurring transaction like we saw with the general journal. The only thing that will change when we recall it is the date. Everything else will remain the same, so that'll bar errors. So I'm going to go and use this little store as recurring transaction button that we saw before with our general journal. And I'm going to call this store rent, monthly frequency, but we have all of these options. Monthly is what we need for rent, and choose OK. And I'll go ahead and post. And OK. So that's a variety of different transactions we can handle with the purchase invoices. Pay later, COD, and recurring. Thanks so much for watching. Talk to you soon.